You think railroad crews ate at depots and dining cars? Think again. The hottest, cheapest, most filling suppers were cooked right beside the tracks, over coal and cast iron, with nothing wasted. Long days, short breaks, and food that had a job: warm the hands, steady the legs, finish the miles. If you grew up in the States, you know these flavors: beans, cabbage, coffee that floats a horseshoe. Tonight, 25 real trackside suppers. Hot, cheap, filling, all aboard. Supper's on. Section House Beef Stew. It wasn't fancy. It was railroad cooking at its toughest. Tough beef hit a hot pan with salt pork fat until the edges browned, and the air said supper was on. Potatoes and onions followed, maybe a carrot if the boxcar blessed you, water to cover, pepper enough to wake it, and time, because time turns scraps into strength. The broth went brown and glossy, the kind that coats a spoon and your ribs. Steam fogged tin cups and work glasses. Men ate with hats pushed back and hands still warm from the firebox. Long days, short fuel, and a bowl that worked as hard as they did. That's why this pot never cooled. You know the smell. Sunday comfort on a weekday budget, the spoon knocking the side, the window going cloudy in winter. You didn't make it to be delicate. You made it to steady your legs, quiet the shake, and put tomorrow's miles within reach. Hot, cheap, filling, reliable as track and tie. Gandy-Dancer chili, bean forward. No shortcuts, no sweet talk. This was a bowl of red that earned its keep. Pinto or navy beans soaked overnight, then up before dawn, rattling in a pot that muttered all day beside the right-of-way. Dried ancho and pasilla went in whole, then torn and ground with a mug or the back of a knife, their brick-red heat waking tired hands. Maybe a fist of beef if the boxcar smiled, maybe not. Meat was optional, heat was mandatory. Salt pork or yesterday's drippings bloomed the chilies and slicked the beans so every spoonful felt like work completed. The steam rose dark and honest. Smoke, pepper, maybe a hint of coffee if the cook had a notion. You ate it standing, hat tipped back, breath turning white, and the first mouthful told you the day would bend. This is patience in a pot. Beans that take their time, peppers that take respect, flavor that doesn't apologize. Ask for mild and the foreman laughs. Ask for seconds and he just points at the ladle. By sundown, the stew had thickened to resolve, a slow fire stacked under your ribs, ready to carry you 10 more miles without complaint. Salt pork and fried potatoes with onions, fat first. Everything else listens. Cubes of salt pork hit the pan and speak in a bright, mean sizzle, rendering into a shallow lake that smells like you've already done half the work. Out come the cracklings. In go potato slabs and onion crescents, laid flat so every surface can make its case. No hurry. Heat a notch under fierce, because crisp takes patience, and patience tastes better. Potatoes drink the fat, edges browning to a lace you can hear when the spatula nudges them. Onions turn from sharp to sweet, slipping gold around the slices like a promise kept. A pinch of pepper, maybe a whisper of vinegar at the end to wake it up, and the pan suddenly looks like a good decision. Flip once, not 5 times. Let the crust set. Let the room smell like you meant it. You eat these with a fork or with fingers, hot enough to make you blow on each bite, soft centers giving way under a crackly edge that says, the day isn't bigger than you are. Nothing wasted. Cracklings back on top, a few on every plate. Supper doesn't need speeches or ceremony. The skillet says, when. Chicken and dumplings. An old bird doesn't argue. It just needs time and a steady fire. The pot started with a tough hen, onions, a fist of pepper, and enough water to cover. Lid on, slow boil, rails humming in the distance. Hours later, the meat loosened its grip, bones giving up flavor the way dusk gives up light. The cook hauled the chicken out, shredded it quick with a fork and a knife, then slid it back into a broth that had turned from plain to persuasive. Now came the part that made a camp go quiet. Spooned clouds of dough dropped straight into the rolling stock. Flour, a pinch of salt, a little fat, just wet enough to hold together. They puffed the moment they hit heat, Soft centers, satin skins, bobbing like little buoys in gravy. Pepper bloomed, onions went sweet, and the steam smelled like you'd been remembered. Bowls were filled heavy, spoons knocked the rim, and nobody minded the weight that brought them here. This wasn't fine or fussy. It was the kind of comfort that shows up with its sleeves rolled up, ready to work. You ate until your hands steadied and the cold backed off. Then you went back to the line, knowing the night would behave. Cabbage and sausage. Pot cabbage carried the load. Sausage carried the flavor. Shredded green went into a warm pot with a spoon of lard, the leaves wilting like snow on hot iron. Then came coins of smoked sausage, edges taking color, smoke waking the whole camp. Onion if there was one, a shake of pepper either way. Lid on, fire low. Time doing what salt and fat ask it to do. The cabbage softened and sweetened, giving up bite for body. The sausage bled its smoke into every strand until the pot smelled like a wood stove in January. A splash of vinegar at the end snapped it into focus. A handful of potatoes made it a full shift's worth of supper. You could eat it with a spoon or a fork or a hunk of biscuit, and every approach made sense. Cheap as a wink, fast as a whistle, and kinder than it had any right to be. The steam fogged tin plates, the broth at the bottom begged for bread. This wasn't a showpiece, it was a plan that worked. Stretch one good sausage across a crowd and let cabbage do the heavy lifting. A bowl like this puts miles in your legs, miles in a bowl. Sardines and crackers. 5 minutes, full salt, full fat. The tin key rolls back with a curl and the smell says, supper doesn't need a stove. Sardines slide out glossy and sure, laid on hard crackers that don't mind a load. Maybe there's a squeeze of lemon if a camp box ran lucky, or a lick of hot sauce from a bottle that's seen better labels. Maybe just a grind of pepper and a nod. The fish breaks clean, buttery under the tongue, briny enough to wake tired hands. Coffee stands by, black, hot, no speeches, because the best partner for salt is heat that keeps walking. If an onion's around, a thin slice goes on top and turns the bite into something you'd pay for in town. Wind can't bother it, rain can't stop it. You eat it standing, hat pushed back, a plate in one hand and tomorrow's mile already looking shorter. No pan to scrub, no fire to feed. Just open, stack, finish, move. Cheap, certain, and more honest than most dinners that take an hour. A short supper that lengthens your stride. Short supper, long stride. Pickled eggs. Protein that ignores weather. A big glass jar sits on a shelf like a lighthouse, cloudy with vinegar and promise. Inside, hard-boiled eggs wait in a brine that bites. Vinegar, salt, mustard seed, peppercorns, maybe a garlic clove or a slice of chili for the sharp talk at the end. They soak for days, sometimes longer, trading plain for punch until the whites take on a little snap and the yolks taste like they learned something. You don't need a pan, just a pocket knife in a moment. Crack, peel, tap the rim of a tin plate to shake off the brine, then bite. Sour wakes you first, salt rides behind, pepper pricks the edges, and the yolk goes creamy like it still remembers being warm. Some camps set a tin of hot sauce nearby, some a bowl of coarse salt. Most figured the jar had already done enough. They sell by the piece, they travel in pockets, they don't blink at rain or cold, and they fill the quiet between quitting time and sleep. Grab one, grab two, keep moving. Supper doesn't always need fire to do its job. Quick to serve, slow to forget, clean, bright, sharp as a whistle. Ham hock and navy beans. One salted hock could turn a scattered camp into Sunday. It hit the pot first, bone and rind and smoke, the kind of meat that teaches beans how to behave. Navy beans soaked and rinsed, then slid into the simmer with onions and a bay leaf if anyone had one. Lid on, fire low. Time doing the slow work no knife can. The hock surrendered its marrow and salt, the broth going from thin and shy to glossy and sure, a spoon leaving trails like wagon ruts. Every so often the cook lifted the lid, pressed a bean against the side. Soft enough yet? Not quite. Back it went. By late afternoon, the pot breathed steady and the camp smelled like letters from home. Cups fogged, belts loosened, and nobody rushed the first bowl. You don't hurry a meal that waited all day for you. A handful of black pepper, a splash of vinegar if someone was clever, and the beans shined like they'd been polished in pork fat. Men ate quiet for a minute, then talked easier. This was thrift turned into comfort, bone turned into gravy, hours turned into strength, cheap fuel, rich broth, enough warmth to finish the miles and start tomorrow without complaint. Corned beef hash. Leftovers don't ask for permission, they just show up ready to work. Yesterday's corned beef meets a pile of potato dice, onion chopped fine, and a spoon of drippings in a skillet that remembers breakfast. The trick isn't stirring, it's patience. Press the mix into an even cake and let the heat do the slow welding, edges ticking, fat whispering under the lid of your attention. Don't fuss. Don't flip too soon. You're building a crust that shatters like thin glass when the spatula finally slides underneath. Salt is careful, pepper is generous. If there's a scrap of bell pepper or a splash of coffee lingering in the pot, they're welcome. Small favors that deepen the brown. When you turn it, the pan goes quiet for a beat, then sings again. The bottom shows a bronzed map of your restraint. A quick fry on the second side, a knob of butter around the edges to lacquer the crisp, and it's ready. Steam lifts, beef goes tender again, potatoes go creamy under that crackle. You can top it with an egg or not, the hash won't take offense. Cheap ingredients, rich applause, hot, fast, certain, a nickel in, $1 out. Fried trout with cornmeal crust. A river stretch meant a little grace. Cold water, quick hands, and supper that didn't need hours. Gut and rinse while the fire wakes, then pat the trout dry like you're telling it to behave. A shallow pan holds the dredge. Coarse cornmeal, black pepper you can see, a pinch of salt. Fish goes in whole, head on if no one's fussy, turning the cornmeal sunny and rough. The skillet gets pork fat hot enough to shimmer but not smoke. Lay the trout down and listen for that clean, eager sizzle. Don't poke, don't scoot, let the crust seal and the flesh turn from glassy to opal. Flip once with a calm hand, fins crisp up, skin freckles, and the scent turns from river to kitchen in a heartbeat. A squeeze of lemon if a wedge survived, or a dab of pickled onion from another jar, and suddenly the plate looks like good fortune. Bones teach patience. The meat slides free, sweet and delicate under a crackly coat that talks back to your teeth. Eat it with a biscuit, or just stand over the pan and nod. Cheap fire, honest fat, the day's catch paying its way. Tin plate fine dining. Sausage gravy over sourdough biscuits. Flour, fat, and pepper can turn a thin evening into a full one. Sausage hits the skillet first, breaking into crags and brown edges, leaving a shine of drippings that smell like the day is already getting better. Sprinkle in flour and stir until the pan goes quiet and toasty. Then pour in milk in steady ribbons, scraping up the browned bits that hold all the stories. The gravy wakes and thickens, slow at first, then sure. Pepper snowing down until it tastes like someone meant it. Meanwhile, those sourdough biscuits, raised on a stubborn old starter, split with a sigh, steam curling out like a greeting. Ladle meets biscuit and keeps going. This is not a drizzle, it's a blizzard. Sausage peaks poke through a white landscape, the bottom soaking, the top still proud. A touch more pepper, maybe a pat of butter nudged around the rim to gloss the whole business, and you've got a plate that makes chairs scrape closer. You don't talk much over this. You eat, you nod, you put your hat on the hook and breathe easier. Cheap parts, honest heat, and a gravy that remembers to stay. It sticks where you need sticking. Canned salmon patties. Payday taste from a can. You crack it open and drain what you must. Pink flakes meeting a handful of crumbs, a chopped onion, a squeeze of mustard if the tin showed up, and an egg to keep the peace. Salt is modest, pepper is not. Some cooks add a splash of coffee or a squeeze of lemon. Both wake the fish without asking for attention. Mix just enough to marry, then pat into thick rounds that feel like they'll hold their ground. The skillet gets a spoon of drippings and a steady heat. Patties go in and settle with a hush, edges tightening, surfaces freckling. Don't chase them. Let the bottoms bronze until the smell turns from canned to kitchen. Flip once. The second side goes the color of good luck, onions softening inside, crumbs turning into a crackle you can hear. Set them on a tin plate with pickles or a wedge of biscuit, maybe a spoon of gravy if the pot nearby insists. The bite is tender, a little sweet, richer than the price suggests, and the pan tells you it was worth keeping fish in the pantry of a moving camp. Cheap parts, clean heat, honest crust, luxury on a tin plate. Sourdough biscuits. Starters were guarded like gold, kept alive in coffee tins, fed with a pinch of flour, carried from camp to camp like a secret handshake. When the fire ran steady and the iron ran hot, a scoop of that stubborn old culture met flour, salt, and a good spoon of lard. The dough didn't get coddled. It got folded quick, patted thick, and cut with a tin can so the edges rose proud. Into the skillet they went, kissing bacon shine or a slick of drippings, bottoms searing while the tops took the heat like sunrise. 10 minutes of patience, then the tiny drum roll of crust against metal told you they were ready. You split one with your thumbs and the steam curled up like a greeting from home. Inside was pale and tender, a little tang that said the starter had stories, layers that caught butter, gravy, honey, or just the memory of coffee. Biscuits hit plates first, so everything else had somewhere warm to land: hash, eggs, sausage blizzard, or the last of last night's stew. Cheap flour, honest fat, and a wild yeast that refused to quit, railroad food didn't need permission to be good. Tear, steam, swallow, breathe easier. A promise kept. Liver and onions. This dish doesn't make speeches. It asks for a hot pan and your full attention. Slices get a light dusting, flour, salt, a whisper of paprika. Then they wait while onions take the stage. In a spoon of fat, the onions go from sharp to sweet brown, collapsing into ribbons that smell like the kitchen remembered you. Push them aside, wake the heat, and lay the liver in flat. Short conversation, a minute or two per side, no fidgeting, just the clean sizzle of iron doing honest work. The crust blooms, the centers stay tender, overcook it, and you lose the kindness you came for. A quick splash, coffee, stock, or a touch of vinegar, pulls the browned bits into a dark gloss that coats the onions and quiets the room. Pepper finishes what fire started. You stack it on a biscuit or a plate of potatoes, and the first bite tells you why crews kept this close. Mineral-rich, buttery inside, the sweetness of onions running interference, cheap, fast, steady, proof that timing beats luxury when miles are still ahead. Stop on time or lose the kindness. Nail the timing and a hard day softens right there at the pan. Coffee can bread. No tins? No problem. You scrub a couple coffee cans clean, peel the labels, wipe them with a little fat, and they become pans with handles. A quick batter, flour, a pinch of salt, a spoon of sugar if the crew won't snitch, leavening that knows its job, and enough milk or water to pour instead of need. Maybe a splash of starter for backbone. Batter slides into the shiny cans halfway up. Lids aren't invited, heat is. Set them in a Dutch oven or nestle them by the coals with a few on top, and the iron does its quiet work. First there's a sigh, then a lift, then the small drum roll of crust against metal when you tap the side. You ease them out and the loaves stand tall and round, steam streaming like a train leaving town. Slice thick and the knife shows a tight, even crumb, sturdy enough for gravy, soft enough for butter and syrup, willing to carry hash, eggs, or last night's stew without complaint. The ends go first because cooks have rights. What's left cools on a folded rag until someone pockets a slice for the next stretch. Cheap ingredients, steady heat, and bread on time. Humble, perfect slices. Corn Dodgers, Johnnycakes. An edible plate and an edible plan. Cornmeal met boiling water with a hiss, scalded just enough to wake the grain and make a dough that behaved. A pinch of salt, a spoon of drippings if the skillet offered, then handfuls were patted into ovals or dropped as thick batter onto hot iron. No sugar, no frills. The heat did the talking. Edges curled and browned first, lifting like a wink. The centers set tender, with that quiet, toasty sweetness only corn can manage. You could stack stew on them, park beans on them, or eat them straight from the pan with molasses if a jar survived the week. They traveled well in pockets and bedrolls, tasted right beside a river span or a wind-cut cut bank, and came back to life with a quick reheat at dawn. Pepper worked if you wanted it, so did a scrape of bacon fat brushed across the top to make them shine. The best ones crackled when you bent them and went soft as soon as your teeth found the middle. Cheap, steady, and ready when the whistle said move, they were the crew's dependable ground, bread you could count on while you counted miles, hot and good, period. Cabbage and bacon. Fry up 3 ingredients, 10 minutes, 10 smiles. Bacon hits the pan and turns loud, breaking into shards that perfume the air and leave just enough shine to tell you what comes next. In goes shredded cabbage, a full armful, taller than seems sensible. Then it slumps like snow on a stove, slicked by bacon fat and beginning to sweeten. Stir once, not forever. Let the edges catch a little color while the centers go tender. Pepper works here like a plan, big shakes that wake the skillet and make the cabbage taste bigger than it is. If an onion's around, it can join late. If not, nobody misses it. The bacon comes back at the end for crunch and salt, a handful flicked over the top so there's treasure in every bite. Steam rises, pan talks, and the whole thing goes from pile to supper in the time it takes to hang a coat. Eat it straight, spoon it over potatoes, or trap it in a biscuit, every root lands right. Cheap parts, quick heat, and the good sense to stop before soft turns soggy. This isn't fuss or ceremony, it's the kind of plate that makes a cold evening shorter. Quick heat, clean win. Fried potato cakes. Yesterday's spuds show up with their sleeves rolled. Cold potatoes get mashed with a chopped onion, a pinch of salt, a grind of pepper, maybe a spoon of flour or a beaten egg if the mix needs help holding its nerve. Hands do the measuring here. You pat out thick patties, not polite, sturdy. The skillet gets a shine of drippings, hot enough to speak but not to shout, and the cakes go in with a hush that turns to promise. Don't chase them. Let the bottom set into a crust you can hear when the spatula tests the edge. Flip once. The second side freckles and browns, onion bits going sweet, steam trapped inside like a secret. A dab of butter around the rim lacquers the crisp. A quick shake of vinegar or a spoon of gravy on the plate brings the whole story together. They eat right off the pan with eggs, under chili, or beside cabbage and sausage. The humble partner that makes the star look smarter. Cheap, fast, certain. The kind of supper that turns scraps into pride and a long day into something you finished. The rule holds from campfire to kitchen. Waste nothing. Win supper. Hardtack with pan gravy. The old toothbreaker wasn't meant to charm, so you changed its job. Hardtack went into a basin first, soaked with hot water or broth until the edges stopped fighting back. While it softened, the skillet picked up drippings from whatever the day had given. Salt pork, sausage, a bit of beef. Flour sprinkled in and stirred till the pan smelled toasty and the scraps on the bottom loosened like good news. In went liquid in steady ribbons, water, stock, even a splash of coffee if the pot was close, scraped and whisked into a peppery gravy that thickened from thin promise to sure thing. A little onion if you had it, a pinch of sage if someone was sentimental, and the color went the right kind of brown. Now the ceremony. Drained hardtack laid flat, then a steady pour until the tough corners surrendered and the biscuit became ballast. Steam lifted, pepper stung just enough, and the first forkful told you thrift had found its manners. You didn't need butter or lace, only heat, patience, and a steady hand with the ladle. Supper like this makes a hard day chew easier. With enough gravy, days soften. Cow tongue in brown gravy. Time-rich, cash-poor elegance. The tongue goes into a pot with onions, peppercorns, bay if someone saved a leaf, and enough water to cover. Slow boil, quiet and steady, until a fork slips in without complaint. Out it comes, to cool just enough. Then the peel lifts like a glove, steam rising, meat shining. Sliced across the grain, the pieces go back to the skillet for a quick sear and drippings, edges taking on color, kitchen smelling like someone made a careful choice. Flour meets the fat, toasts to nut brown, and a ribbon of broth, maybe a splash of coffee, pulls the browned bits into a dark, convincing gravy. Salt finds its level, black pepper wakes it, a whisper of vinegar snaps it into focus. The slices go glossy, silky under the spoon, the kind of texture that makes a camp go quiet for a minute. Serve with potatoes, biscuits, or over cabbage. Gravy runs where it wants and nobody argues. Bones and trimmings paid the bill, but patience did the cooking. This isn't fancy, it's confidence. Take a humble cut, give it time, and let fire do the rest. Soft as a promise, rich as good news, silky enough to quiet a camp. Dried apple hand pies. Pocket dessert for cold nights. Dried apples go into a tin with hot water until they loosen and plump, then get chopped and simmered with a spoon of sugar, a shake of cinnamon, maybe a whisper of nutmeg if someone's feeling rich. The smell turns the camp kind. Meanwhile, a sturdy dough comes together. Flour, a pinch of salt, lard rubbed in with quick hands, just enough water to bring it close. Roll it thick. These aren't fragile. Cut circles with a cup, spoon in the apple, fold and crimp with a thumb, then poke a couple vents so the steam has manners. A skillet or Dutch oven does the baking. Hot iron, steady coals, a brush of drippings on the outside so they blister and brown. They come out freckled and proud, edges crisp, seams sealed, filling jammy and bright. You can hear the flake when you break one, feel the heat through your gloves, taste orchard and smoke at the same time. They travel in pockets, sit easy on tin plates, and make the last hour of a hard day shorter. No frosting, no speeches, just warm fruit in a crust that knows its job. Supper's done, dessert's ready. Take one for the road and eat with gloves on. Bread pudding with coffee syrup. Old bread gets a second act when the night asks for kindness. Yesterday's biscuits, heel ends, and torn slices go into a pan and drink a warm mix of milk, eggs, a spoon of sugar, and a pinch of salt. Nothing fancy, just enough to teach crumbs to hold together. Raisins if the camp box is generous, a scrape of cinnamon if someone remembered. The pieces settle, swell, and turn from scraps to custard while the fire evens out. Into hot iron it goes until the top freckles and the edges pull away. The center soft like a good answer. While it bakes, the coffee pot pays its dues. A little butter melted in a tin, a ladle of strong coffee stirred in with brown sugar until it runs smooth and smells like morning and dessert shook hands. When the pudding comes out, the spoon dips and the syrup pours. No drizzle, a warm ribbon that finds every gap and turns the top glossy. First bite is bread and steam, then caramel, coffee, and butter finishing the sentence. You eat slower than usual, not because it's rich, but because it's right. Cheap parts, steady heat, and a pour that settles the day. Soft lands for hard days. Molasses gingerbread. Sweetness that keeps, heat that warms the chest. Molasses pours like a dark ribbon into a bowl with a knob of melted fat, a splash of coffee or water, and sugar if the crew insists. Ginger leads the spice parade with cinnamon and clove marching close behind. Flour and a straight-shooting leaven fold in last, just enough mixing to make a batter that flows instead of fights. The sheet pan wears a shine of drippings or a rub of lard, then the batter goes in and levels itself like calm water. Fire steady, not fierce. Ginger likes time to bloom. The top domes a little, freckles, then springs back when a finger asks a polite question. You pull it, and the camp smells like holidays that didn't check the calendar. Cut in squares while it's still warm, and the knife leaves tidy edges. The crumb is dark, tender, and a little sticky in the best way, ready to catch a pat of butter or a spoon of apples if someone is generous. It rides well in pockets, tastes better the next day, and makes men stand closer to talk. Cheap pantry, long shelf life, and a flavor that remembers home. Right home kind of cake. Gooseberry cobbler. Tartland under a biscuit crown. Gooseberries come in hard and green, fistfuls of sour that wake your mouth before they touch the pan. You stem them quick, toss with sugar till they sparkle, maybe a spoon of flour so the juices don't run like a broken rail, and let them sit while the fire finds its pace. The drop biscuit top is simple. Flour, salt, a rub of lard, just enough milk to make a dough that falls from the spoon in rough clouds. Berries go into hot iron. Biscuits drop on top with spaces between so steam can climb and syrup can bubble up. The lid goes on, coals ride the roof, and you listen for that quiet, happy simmer. When it's ready, the edges hiss, the middle pulses like a small heartbeat, and the biscuit tops brown where the heat kisses them first. Crack a corner, and the scent is summer and wood smoke, sharp and sweet in the same breath. Spoon it into tin bowls while it's still misbehaving. Juices racing, biscuits soaking, tongues warned to wait a second. No frosting, no fuss, just clean flavor and warm fruit under honest dough. Sour meets sweet. Silence follows. Railroad pie Shoofly-Style. Built for miles and crowds, a sturdy lard crust gets rolled thick and laid into a pan that's seen more miles than manners. The filling is simple and sure, molasses loosened with hot water, a pinch of salt, a breath of spice, and soda to make it lift its chin. Over the top goes the crumb, flour rubbed with sugar and fat until it looks like dry gravel at dusk, scattered heavy so sweetness meets grit. Into steady heat it goes. First, the edges bubble like tar in July. Then the center settles from wobble to promise. You pull it and wait, because patience is how this pie earns its ticket. Cooled, it cuts clean, tidy wedges that don't slouch on a tin plate and don't fall apart in a pocket wrapped with waxed paper. The bite is dark and bright at once, brown sugar thunder with a little bitter to make it honest, crumbs crackling, crust holding steady. It rides well to the next camp, feeds a line without complaint, and tastes right beside black coffee strong enough to float a nail. No frosting, no frill, just a slice that shows up on time and does its job. Cuts clean, rides well, feeds many. Dependable as the timetable. Hot, cheap, filling, that's how the rails were fed. One pot when time was short, a skillet when fuel was thin, and a sweet bite when the day needed soft edges. Fat became flavor, leftovers became tomorrow. Nothing was wasted, and miles got done. If a dish here sounded like home, tell us which one. If another made you raise an eyebrow, say so. We read every story. Drop a memory in the comments. A bean pot that never cooled, a biscuit that steamed like a promise, a pie that wrote in waxed paper. Hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell if you want more American food history you can almost smell. Next up, early dining car plates, the moment Trackside grit put on a white tablecloth. Same country, different manners. See you on board.